And we're live. Happy Turkey Week, Bill.
Hello, Sean.
Gobble,
He's not
gobble.
going to wish you a
Gobble,
happy
gobble.
Turkey Week, apparently.
Hey, Katie.
Hey, Sean.
I'll
wish you a happy Turkey Week.
Next week is Turkey Week.
Well,
No,
when this
no.
releases, it will be
Oh.
next week.
Oh, this week is Turkey Week. I gotcha.
Don't screw with the production, Bill.
Sorry.
God.
Happy Turkey Week.
Hey, there's a wizard behind the curtains there, kids.
Named Tessa.
Don't worry about it. Just a wizard the whole time. Bill, ruining the magic. All right. So we figured with this week being Thanksgiving here in the U.S., sorry to our Canadian friends and especially
Australian.
Canada has its own Thanksgiving.
Oh,
it
true,
was just like
true,
a month ago.
Right.
Australia, I don't think has any concept unless they want to email in and tell us about it.
Please do. I'm fascinated.
Anyway, we figured we'd keep this light this week. Talk about one of the things we talk about here a lot is technology changing compensation. But we wanted to broaden it out a little bit and talk about how tech has changed the workplace. Because I think it's one of these things that's almost insidious. It kind of creeps in, and more quickly than you realize, all of a sudden you're having to be present and responsive on at least 10 different forms of communication, which isn't great. So let's talk about that today. We want to talk about the rise of this, how things have changed, and the pros and cons of it. So let's start out. Here's my story. Ready, Bill?
I'm ready.
Not a big fan of the instant messengers. Not a big fan of Slack or HipChat or Microsoft Communicator or Skype
GChat?
or
What about GChat?
GChat. Could go on and on. There's probably about 10 of them. Not a big fan.
Facebook Messenger?
Definitely not even on it. But I feel that it's in my day it's interruptive, and my job's a little different than others. But when I have to do thoughtful / deep work that I have to focus on, it's the worst thing ever. It gives you a reason to not do it. And people expect an immediate response because of that form of communication. I believe that those things are around because email wasn't real time enough.
Correct, I think. But it's also, I think, that we see, you were saying it's real time, it's, creates urgency, but it takes someone else's urgency and makes it yours.
Correct.
And
They
so it
can pile
allows
onto your
people to
day.
mess with your priority list,
Yes.
to interrupt your flow.
Yeah.
And it
I need to
seems
get in a good state.
it seems like the more senior people and the more, the people with more like big meaty projects that they need to do, the
Yeah.
less they like those things because they interrupt you, they get in the way, and it's sort of
Because what you're doing isn't transactional and not
deep thought.
not
Right.
that like not to imply
Right.
that other roles don't have to put thought into their work,
Right.
but you're able to move on quickly from one thing to the other, at least more quickly than
Sales
stuff
is
you're working
paid to
on.
be transactional and paid to be quickly responsive for all intents and purposes, right? So, like, it's a benefit to them.
yeah.
It's probably not as much to an engineering team,
Yeah.
right? Who you want
Right.
to go focus on building something with as few errors as possible.
Yeah.
but a good use like in our products where we allow clients to chat in
Yes.
with quick questions. We respond quickly, because we want them to
Yes.
get
Be
their
able to move
answer
on in
right
their
away
day.
because they're obviously in the middle of something, and their their
That's fair.
urgency is our service person's responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting parts. While everything has become more real time due to technology, and I'm picking on messaging services, but like a lot has become more real time due to technology. That is one of the areas now that as consumers we have that expectation, right? Amazon fulfills something within a day a lot of times, and they're trying to shrink that down
Right.
to an hour or two, right? It's the same thing when you're in the middle, to your point, of a project or in your middle trying to buy something. You want that quick answer. Right?
Correct.
You're in the mindset then. You don't want to fill out a form, come back later, file a ticket, whatever it is, and have to get
Right.
back in that mindset when the provider's ready.
But similarly, retail sites like Amazon and others will never put an ad in front of you while you're in the buying process.
True.
Like as you're starting to enter your credit card, they're not going to interrupt you and go, "Oh, have you thought about this?" Because it's like, don't mess with the sale, don't mess with the transaction.
So there's the real-time communication aspect, but let me ask you this, Bill.
Uh-oh.
Has technology, if you ignore the real-time aspect, has it made us more productive?
Oh, we were just talking before the podcast started. I was picking Bill's brain about this.
I think it's both made us more productive and more distracted. is my opinion. You can definitely do a lot more now than you could, we'll say, 30 years ago, pre-internet. And Katie just mentioned this. One example was, before there was a way to move files easily from one person or one location to another, you were primarily working with people in your physical location.
Right.
If I'm working on something and I need it reviewed by Katie has to be in the same office as me, or else I am mailing it to her, or
sending a courier, or something like that.
Sometimes faxing, but faxing may work for documents. But if like many people in our world live in things like Excel or other software where you're actually making changes to what's going on.
If you were doing your most creative advertising pitch and wanted to show it to her, for example.
Right. There you go. And then you send her some pictures, which I remember doing things like this. And, the graphics, the designer people would send like slide decks and they would print them out. And then the manager, the partner, whoever it is now manually editing, saying, can you move this?
Wow.
Or change this color. But often it wasn't in color because color printers were very expensive.
Right.
This sounds like hell on earth.
And for anybody that's, over, I'll say over 50 listening, it's like, the PowerPoint slides that you put together now and that you're typing on the way into the conference room to present it.
Forever and ever to do, right?
When I started my career, those had to be done at least 3 days in advance so that the graphics people could send them out to have slides made. And they're called slides for a reason because they used to come on the little, Kodak slides in a carousel on a slide projector. Exactly. So it's like, it actually, we have more control now because you could do it yourself, but we also have less efficiency because you don't have to get it done any sooner than the moment before you present it.
The instant it's up there.
Yes. And sometimes people change them when they're in a meeting or a conference room.
So let's bring this back to compensation then for a minute, which is, I think one of the cases you hear a lot is that people will cite what you say, right? We are more productive, and actually the results show that, right? We're more productive as a population now. But wages haven't risen in that same amount, right? So one of the things I found interesting, and we can link to this article, is that, well, it's basically a false argument, right? Wages might not have risen, but when you look at total cash comp, which is something that we know, like people are, we've had, I can't tell you how many podcasts we've covered on this topic, where people are using more bonus or incentives, or you have to look at total cash, and that tends to stay more in line.
More in line with what?
Productivity gains. If you look at just wages, it doesn't at all, and we know that, right? Every presidential candidate will tell you that.
Right.
But if you look at total cash comp, it's much more in line.
That makes sense to me, and it's also like the efficiency gains, and this is, I'm pretty sure this is not a political podcast, but it's just because gains or profits are made from efficiency doesn't mean people are going to get paid more for it. It's like the value of a job is based on, that job relative to other jobs and to what other companies are paying.
Supply and demand.
And, the profits go to, get spread among the employees, the shareholders, the economy in general, the government.
Yeah, right. So that could be one of the reasons why, but it's also, as industries change, one of the reasons why you might not see wages, and this is me speculating, is those are the jobs that, when we just talked about couriers, there's not much need for them anymore, right? So there still might be some, but the wages, there's just not the demand to increase wages in that type of a group. Other things have come that have increased wages in jobs with similar skills but different, right?
Right.
Uber, right? Maybe a bad example, but
right. I mean, there's
Amazon Prime delivery.
So an interesting story about the phenomenon of Uber, and I hesitate to
Let's
get
do
into
it.
But it's sort of the it's probably better to talk about it in London, say, where cab drivers have to take, they basically apprentice as cab drivers. They have to
Right.
learn the map. They have to know everything about the
I
city
didn't know this.
and take tests in order to become a cab driver. And so that is perceived to be don't write in about this, a moderately skilled job.
You have to know how to avoid traffic and get somewhere as
Right.
fast as possible. and
Right.
somebody
You have
gives
to
an
know all
address,
the
how to
routes,
get
all the
there.
streets, right? And so when you compare that level of job to Uber, where you just have to have your own car and a phone, and it's a lower skill and a lower barrier to entry to the job.
Yeah.
And then the other end is the technology side, and the sales and marketing side of Uber is way more advanced than your average taxi company. Company that buys medallions and just owns a bunch of cars. And that's a very local thing,
Right.
and it's a sort of a basic transportation business. And so and again, I can't even remember who was writing about this, but what they were saying is the split is the money from car rides is going more and more to in Uber or rideshare model to the company,
Yep.
which has very low assets and
Yep.
low
Just
cost,
software by and large. Yeah.
right? But it is a technology and a sort of a high skilled group, small group of high skilled people, and less money goes to the drivers.
Right.
So you're actually sort of dividing so that like the average pay for a driver is staying flat or going down,
Which is what the wages of
and the
will
average
show you.
pay for management of driving companies goes up.
Well, okay, ignore that specific instance, but isn't that the big divide right now? That management
Right.
at a lot of different companies
Which
is rising unrelated to or uncorrelated with
Right.
Regular wages otherwise.
right, well, companies are getting bigger, and the job is getting more. There are still 500, give or take, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they are much bigger now than they were
True.
20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever.
True. But use your example with Uber, right? One of the
Okay.
interesting things that could be, I don't know, let's play out the technology future with that. Uber's never made a dime. They don't look like they're going to make a dime anytime soon either. So are all these technological advancements really changing anything?
Well, and I think that's above the pay grade of this podcast. But,
We'll
but,
bring an economist on.
but I do think it's, it is this, it has made some things more efficient.
It's more convenient.
It's more convenient. It is much more logical. You can start a business, as, Jeff said in, his CompCon speech a year ago, that you can't, you don't buy cars. If you were going to start a ride service in New York City, you wouldn't start by buying 10,000 cars and painting them yellow. That made sense, back in the 20s or
best they could
30s
do.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But now, everyone has cars, and you take advantage of that.
Everyone has smartphones. They all
Right.
have GPS chips in
Right.
them. Right.
I think the Uber story is, they're paying to expand, and
Maybe.
when it levels off, will the business, the ride-sharing business, still exist? Yeah, it probably will. Will it be sort of a hot new technology industry? Probably not.
And as long as they have competition, it's going to be like as long as Lyft's there. Who
Right. It'll keep the price in check.
Right. They would also like to ask you to go on their roadshow with them, though, and make that pitch.
All right, I'll go back to my office and wait for that call.
Fireside chats only.
Oh, perfect.
Wow. Wow.
I just know Bill's flavor.
Oh. Fireside
Well, like conversational.
conversational's good.
So I think while we're talking about this, to kind of put a point on it, one of the things that we can maybe give tips on is basically personal productivity. How do you put the walls up? How do you put the boundaries up to say, like, for example, do I need to be in my role? You brought up a good example, Bill. Do I need to be in my role accessible readily 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day? And if that is what it is, then it is what it is. And I know I'm probably not going to be able to do deep thought work, right? That's just my role.
Right.
alternatively, if I'm doing deep thought work, do I need to be available readily? Right? Is that one of those things that I should be trying to do just because company the company, the way the company operates is there, or is it okay not to do that? Like, how do I put up personal boundaries, and what are some areas to look at for that?
I think a lot of it is like what goes back to what you just said, like personal. You have to like build the habits around it. So if you're finding that you are constantly responding to Slack messages the instant you receive them, then you have to create your own rules for yourself. And I'm sure at some companies that doing that is not fine, but like here I would say like that's fine. You just have to communicate that. So like you, for example, Sean, you're not immediately available on Slack. Like sometimes if someone Slacks you and catches you when you happen to be on Slack and available to chat, then you'll reply. But I think the important thing is that you've communicated that like to your team. We know that you're not usually on Slack, so therefore if we need an immediate response from you from something, like pick up the phone and call. And if someone's not willing to pick up the phone and call you, then it's probably not a big priority, right?
Text me, stop in my office, whatever.
Yes,
that's all fine.
that too.
But yeah, I think I value asynchronous communication unless there's a need otherwise, right? If something's on fire and we need to figure it out, let me know something's on fire and we need to figure it out. If it's just, hey, what about this thing, then it's asynchronous.
Or like, hey, here's a random thought that popped in my head about something. Yeah, like that. And how incredibly frustrating if you were in the middle of a project and you're also trying to respond to me.
Now, Bill, on the other hand, if you don't respond to his Slacks,
well, off with your head.
He comes to your office and just beats on the door as loud as he possibly can. And it's really obnoxious, and I wanted to have an intervention about it today.
So, Bill, the reason
I'm pretty sure most people out there know that I'm not on Slack. But I think about how, like, not to get too corny, but like look at your job description, your real job description. What are you supposed to do? And understand the importance of things like real-time responsiveness and, you know, and sort of getting back to people, because, you know, compensation people in general are weirdly in a like heavy doing role, but also in a customer service role. And you got to keep in mind, like, even if you're getting a call from one employee or one manager asking you a question, that's likely to be one of the most important things to the person asking the question.
100%.
And even though you've got a lot of stuff to do, you've got this take care of your customer issue, and that it may be more important to stop what you're doing and respond to the Slack, respond to the email. You know, even if it's, you know, this is a personal preference, even if it's just to say, got your message, I will get back to you later this afternoon or whatever, but like make sure that the person feels like they're being heard and that their issue is being addressed, because it means something to them. It means a lot to them.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we all care about most. We say that all the time, right? Every employee cares most about their comp. I mean, we most people don't work for free. I think what you're hinting at, though, there is something that's interesting, which is that if you can, I think it's best to structure your day around knowing what you know about yourself. So I know I do my best deep work, if you will, like most thoughtful work early in the morning, typically. When I come in, if I can be focused for a couple hours and knock something out, it's going to be way better than if I'm struggling by the end of the day to try to make that happen. So if you need to do that deep work, if you need to be in Excel for a while and really focus on something, know yourself. Know when you're going to be most productive. It's going to be different for everybody, but try to set aside that time. And either, to your point, communicate. Like if it's an instant message application, you can set a status on there. Or if it's on your email, you could have like a quote-unquote out of office on there. Or to your point, you just kind of monitor it. And if anything on fire does come in, respond that way if you can, if it doesn't need to be handled right away, and get back to what you're doing. That way you're not, I think one of the things that we in the modern age with technology do is like jump around. What's happening on my phone? Your phone is literally this device that's incentivized to get you to interact with it more. The app's on there, the device itself, right? So you're going to get notifications. You're going to have to see what those are. It's a dopamine shot when you get those. You're like, oh, somebody's texting me. What's going on? Oh, there's a new Instagram post, right? So it's easy to jump around and do all these different things but it makes that productive work much, much harder. So know when you're most productive and try to block out those hours.
Or
Right.
also, I think there's a lot of value in, and I'm not sure, again, if this works at other organizations, but I know it works on our team really well, of like having days where you, again, communicate to everybody, but that you're quote unquote off the grid
Yeah.
to do like heads down work. We do it often enough with our team.
And I think one of the things we're talking about there, though, is you can actually develop that ability. And I remember years ago, took a test and it would gauge the rough amount that you're able to focus on something. And certain people are able to do it longer, some not. But you can, like an athlete, train that part of your you can train that ability. You can be more focused. You just have to train yourself to shut out those distractions and really take passion in that deep work, right? Being able to go into deep work and really do it for a few hours or a half day, or right? I mean, writers have to do that typically, right? If you're writing a novel, it's not going to work too well if you're like, I'm going to write a paragraph and then I'm going to go away for a little bit, then I'm going to come back and write another paragraph. It's going to be the most choppy narrative you've ever read, right? So, but you can develop that. That is something, and you can do it, unlike writers, without alcohol, which is helpful, but you can do it without that.
Dare people to, think about in that kind of exercise, writing a book or, some deep project, is going to your computer and shutting off the internet.
Yeah.
Or
because I think there's apps that'll do it for you.
Yeah.
That literally shut down all social media and everything else for you, and it focuses you on just one thing.
Right. I saw a study recently that was about how much time people spend checking their email, and if you ask people, they said, they think it's like 10, 15 minutes a day, and it's more like 2 or 3 hours a day.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like constantly, like, even just out of habit half the time of, like, I don't know. Like,
it's a dopamine shot.
I'm sitting there eating lunch, and I, like, refresh my email, and, and it depends on, like, what that day looks like, or what you're waiting for, but it's 10 to 15 minutes seems absurdly low if you have it on your phone.
And I think, in our world, and I wonder how many other people listening have multiple monitors, depending on what office I'm in. I have 2 or 3 monitors, and it's like email on one, internet on another, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, something on the third, and you're just bouncing around. And huge efficiency gains in being able to, if you need to research something, you just click from one screen to the other and go to Google or whatever your favorite search engine is and look things up and find things that would take days, weeks, or months in the past to find.
Yeah.
But it's also, distraction is just a click away, and we've all been well trained by our phones and our computers to be very distracted and to jump to the next thing and remember, oh, I forgot to make a plane reservation. Let me go, book a flight. Let me, And
it's happened multiple times to me where I've been distracted while doing that kind of stuff, and I've booked it on the wrong day.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Or the AM versus PM or vice versa.
Yep. It's not good.
Yeah. I've gotten distracted from my distractions, which, let's forget where I started.
That is a real rabbit hole. Well, you were just saying that's a lot about just training yourself to be more focused and building those habits. I don't know if this is something either of you ever feel. I feel like probably not. And I don't know if it's like a product of, I don't know if I'm a product of my generation in saying this, or if it's a me thing, but if I go off the grid, it's almost like me, I feel like I need like the permission to do so, and the permission to be like, I'm putting it out there and telling you I am not going to be immediately available today. I'm putting it out there and telling you that I need like to just focus on this one specific thing today. Because otherwise I feel this internal, especially I'm remote 3 days a week, I feel this internal pressure that I've created to myself, but that I respond to things immediately, especially if I'm not in the office. Like I feel like I need to be, if someone slacks me, reply right away to it.
Yeah, so you're raising a good point, which is that technology has facilitated more remote working. But at the same time, when there used to be, like, bad management would be, pardon the phrase, but ass time, right?
Yeah.
How often are people in their seats?
Yeah.
And that's how you know if they're being productive or not. Whereas, like, when you go remote, you can't really do that as much. And that's how bad managers continue that management. It's like, okay, You're going to be
Yeah.
remote, fine, but I want to see you on.
I want to make sure that you're on and
If I Slack you, if I email you, you need to respond to me right away.
Yeah.
So it's probably less permission and more, I would think, just so that would be bad management. In your instance, I think also you're probably more letting people know, you're communicating out that that's going to happen, less seeking permission.
Yeah, that's fair. But I do. I mean, I've
So
worked.
they're not looking for that quick response.
I've worked from home for several years now, and I feel like I've gotten it down more than before. But early on, and I still sometimes do this, like feel it's hard to if you're working from home, it's hard to walk away from your work. You can be like, oh well,
Sure.
I can do this one thing while I'm like making dinner because like whatever, because this is quick and easy or whatever it is. And I also feel like I need to be like sitting in front of my computer all day, whereas like at the office, like you get up, you walk around, you might talk to somebody, you go grab a cup of coffee. Like you're not sitting at your desk straight for 8 hours
Sure.
without leaving it.
Yeah,
So,
that's
and I
right.
feel like part of it is just like building when you are remote, building like good remote habits as well, and like being okay with the time that you might spend interacting with colleagues. It's fine if you take that 20 minutes that you'd spend at the in the kitchen making coffee here and go walk the dog or something.
Well, literally, there were companies that built. Apple always comes as an example. Their new headquarters was built to have those random encounters.
Yeah.
They want those to happen. They want people to chat and come up with new and interesting takes of people that wouldn't normally chat. So yeah, I mean, there's value in that stuff in those random encounters at the office, and the question is with remote work, how do you replicate that?
Yeah, and I would say like going out and doing the I'm thinking of like a few weeks ago when we were preparing for CompCon, I had to write something, and I ended up writing this. I had carved out like half the day to write this because normally it would have taken that long. But I got up and took the dog on a walk and basically wrote the entire thing in my head while I was walking the dog. Came back and had half of what I was working on written because it just, I guess, sort of replicating, maybe not random encounters, but like you're replicating those like bursts of idea.
Yeah, right. Those creative moments.
Yeah.
So I think what we've been talking about here is like a little bit how tech's changed the workplace, a little bit how to adapt to it. If this is a topic that's interesting, I think one of the things we could do is focus more in another podcast on how to harness technology and make the best use of your time.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's something that's interesting to you, write us, coffee@payfactors.com, or you can go to iTunes or wherever your listening avenue of choice is and give us that feedback. Just comment on it and let us know. Also, if you include a smiley picture of Bill, it gets extra credit.
Oh.
They don't
That's new. I
exist.
didn't know that. Yeah. They don't
There's
exist.
gifts out there.
No, they
Wait,
don't
also,
exist.
I would actually be interested. I was just talking about remote work and saying that I'm remote. I'd be interested in knowing how many people on the or how many listeners. Excuse me. I'd be interested in how many listeners are remote or like me, semi-remote, out in the office maybe a couple days.
Or there's a lot of times too with satellite offices. So
Yeah.
they might not be in HQ, but satellite offices though, where they have comp people.
Yep.
So yeah, write in and let us know.
I think an interesting twist would be to we could talk about the difference between technology working for us and us working for technology.
Yes.
It's like, part of the reason that we're rarely on, Sean and Bill are rarely on Slack, is because we don't want to work for
We're
Slack.
not slaves to the man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a weird sort of protest, but also like, that technology is hurting our productivity, not helping it. But we're hurting other people's productivity by not being available.
Potentially. Yeah. True.
See, I don't feel like it's like then that's now we're getting on a tangent and we're trying to close the podcast. And
Sometimes I
Actually-
just need to know what Bill thinks of ABBA. And if I can't get that right away on Slack,
I love palindromes.
I'll just use that as my template from now on now.
All right.
And with Katie's cough, we're going to go ahead and close it out.
I'm alive.
Bill, Katie,
Sean, Katie,
thank you as always.
Sean, Bill,
Tessa.
Tessa.
If this is something that's interesting that you do want to hear a second half of, let us know. We're nothing but not just responsive plebs to everybody's whim on Slack. All right.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And in the U.S.,
to
enjoy
our-
Thanksgiving. Happy Turkey Day. Talk soon, everybody.